Hello and welcome to Marketing Communications with me, your host, Daniel Rahman. Small and medium enterprises, or SMEs, make up 98% of all business establishments in Malaysia. This amounts to about 907,000 entities. In 2016, SMEs reportedly contributed 36.6% of Malaysia's GDP, and this number is expected to rise to over 40% by 2020. Often overlooked, however, is the discussion on the importance of branding and marketing for SMEs, especially in increasing revenue and sales and creating value for the consumers. My guest today is the founder and creative director of Wonder Makers Malaysia, with extensive experience in the field from MNCs to her own boutique agency. Allow me to welcome Fiza Zin.
Hi Daniel.
Fiza, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
In this week's episode, we'll be discussing branding and marketing SMEs. Fiza, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right. Just to start off, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do and what drives you?
I was trained in fine arts actually.
All right.
With I graduated from arts and design with a major in fine arts. But my first job was actually in a national project where I was in charge of the change management communications.
Okay.
So that's when my interest in Marcomm began.
All right.
And I found that I had a little bit of edge over the other team members because I used design to compose my messages, and it had more effect than the others that were doing it.
Right.
Yes.
So you're using your background in fine arts and design as part of your marketing and communications role back then?
Yes, I did.
Right.
Yes.
And so what do you do now? Tell us a little bit about Wonder Makers Malaysia.
Yeah, so I started my own in 2005,
Okay.
and then because I realized that there was a gap in the market where the SMEs were lacking the accessibility to creative agencies. You know, at that time, even if they had the financial ability to undertake any branding campaigns, the larger agencies would not be really have the confidence to work with them.
Right.
You know?
Why is that?
Probably because they were deemed to be too small, or the account was not large enough for them to handle. Because after I left the MNC, I also worked in a smaller firm, and that's when I experienced it myself.
Why did you experience?
When we had a few important launches, and we need somebody to work with us on the communication strategy, and it was tough trying to get an agency to work with us at that time. So they were only the big boys, you know.
So what did you do about that?
So I had to step in and headed the whole campaign implementation, and that's when I learned on the job on how to manage a project from end to end. And my background in design actually did help me to envision how the campaign should look like. Yes.
And what do you say about the changes that have happened since 15 years ago when you started Wonder Makers to what you see today in the space? Are big companies still, agencies still picky over who they work with?
Oh, definitely not.
Okay.
In fact, I think they're quite smart now also. Perhaps,
so?
I assume they have their own boutique agencies, you know, as part of their brands.
Right.
So this is to cater to the SMEs now, which is a very healthy competition actually for smaller boutique agencies, SMEs, so that we could always keep up with the design and the trends, you know, on because it's more competitive now for us.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're saying that big agencies also have their own boutique agencies, and then you have yours, and the market is more competitive, why is the market more competitive? Have SMEs had this realization that marketing and branding is important?
Yes, they do, definitely. Over the years, we have seen how, when I first started, the SMEs did not think that branding is something that they could afford to do.
All right.
You know, but as we try to convince and educate in the process of doing work with them, the realization of having a streamlined communication and branded marketing material is important. So yes, there's a less role of educating them about that now, because they understand what it is and they know what they need.
Right. So what kind of services or what kind of solutions do SMEs usually look for that someone like you would provide?
Yeah, in Wondermaker's case, we provide strategic communication planning and also campaign planning, as well as social media management.
Right, strategic communications, strategic
social media management, campaign planning.
Campaign planning. What about marketing?
Branding. From branding and design.
Do you still do design? Oh, you still do design.
Yes, I do.
So tell us now, with the rise of technology, digital marketing, and influencers, and these are impacting the traditional ways of doing things. What do you see as trends that companies and organizations need to look out for in order to achieve their goals?
Based on my experience and my observation, I think there are certain trends that need to be looked into by business owners. Like a case I had yesterday where a traditional galvanizing company who has never gone beyond their own website, doing anything beyond their own website, called me in to discuss about having a social media presence. So there's this need to actually be visible online, so that's one of the trends.
Right. So it's very interesting that a traditional company that's only had a website presence now wants to go online and have some social media presence.
Yes.
Hold that thought. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
All right.
We'll be back right after this.
Okay.
Welcome back to Marketing Communications. With me today is Fiza Zin, founder and CEO of Wondermakers Malaysia. Fiza, before the break, we were talking about how traditional companies or SMEs have now moved into, social media space. Why do you think that that is a trend that is growing today's day and age?
I guess they realize that that social media can also be one of the best marketing tools for them. If before they think that they have nothing of interest to attract the mass consumer, they understand now that to share their culture, their work values, their vision and mission is also as important for the consumer who are not actually the direct users of products. So the only way to reach out to this is of course through social media. Yes.
How would an organization like this make the consumers care about the message? What do they need to look into and think about?
We were discussing of how they should not only talk about their products, but also about how important the way they run the company, so that people know that who they are dealing with, the people behind it, and the values that the company carries. So that is the approach that the companies may take.
Right. So over your 15 years with Wondermakers, you've had clients from all sorts of backgrounds. Government, FMCG, international clients, service sector. What, from your experiences, are the common mistakes that these organizations do when they try to reach out to consumers or potential stakeholders?
Often that agencies are called for a brief, for a campaign that they had in mind to launch or whatnot, but we will always take the approach of not only designing what needs to happen prior to the launch and what happens during the launch day, but also what happens after it. So this is often the often overlooked aspect of a campaign launch. To be more measurable, to plan for something more measurable, and also accountability, so that we learned from whatever that transpired during the delivery of the campaign, how we can improve further and what not to be repeated, if there were any that.
So if anything happens, so it's good to have measurable and trackable.
Yes.
And what really is the right metrics here? Because oftentimes people say if something goes viral, if it has 100,000 views, 1 million views, or many retweets or shares, that's a good thing. But sometimes that could also be a bad thing, especially when people don't get the message, but they should reshare it because of other reasons.
So when we work with our client, before they launch on any social media space, we would always advise them to have an FAQ in place, as well as a crisis management guideline in place. So this would help or enable their administrators internally if something like this should happen, so they would know what to do, what to expect. So everything should be in a book already for them to refer to.
Right. Does this relate to crisis communications?
Yes, if there's anything that...
Right. Do you help companies with that?
No, I do not.
That's not something you do. All right. And one of the things earlier we talked about technology. There's a big buzz about big data, analytics, personalization, you name it, everyone seems to have it. What are your thoughts about these trends? Are they just mere trends, or are they something which you foresee even using, let's say, artificial intelligence?
I think this is something that we should look into and study and understand how, as marketeer, we could leverage on this technology. And also, as a communicator, we also have the responsibility to educate our listeners of what this technology could bring. What are the impacts? What's the benefit in the long run? It's still a buzzword, but there is a need for someone to play the role to educate the audience of what this is all about.
Right. I'd like to share a quote with you. The Ministry of Entrepreneurial Development and Cooperatives has said that, and I quote, "The SMEs are expected to profit from the 2020 budget allocation of about 13 billion, which is aimed at bolstering economic growth and benefiting businesses and entrepreneurs." The question I have for you is, how important is marketing and branding as part of all of this in using or utilizing budgets effectively?
Especially for the SMEs.
Yes.
This is the time where they could look into allocating some of these budgets into their digital marketing campaigns.
Are they putting in enough money at the moment?
They are still being conventional about it, because it is a trial and error for them, because a budget is always a challenge for a smaller size company, so they have to be careful. And only through, and this kind of initiative takes a long time. It's not something that you can look at the impact in a short period of time. Yeah.
Right. And what would you say to companies who are hesitant at investing, or what do they need to do in terms of hiring the right talent in order to embark on these digital media campaigns?
Yeah, this is why when I mentioned about the trends, the importance of having an online presence is not only about talking about your work culture or the products that you have, but also to attract and acquire potential talents to be part of your team, so also that I think I would like to highlight that one of the important trends would actually be to be a socially conscious organization.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so how as a nation we are moving towards achieving SDG 2030 goals.
Right.
So perhaps this is a time and opportunity for traditional companies to understand how they can each play a role towards achieving this vision. We can start learning what is how to play their role as a socially.
Why do you say that? Like, why do you see SMEs having a responsibility in order to get involved in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals?
Considering the fact that you shared just now that there's more than 90% of SMEs in Malaysia, so the volume itself speaks about the need for SMEs to be proactive in the social and sustainability goals.
Right. But how do you motivate them when getting involved in these causes don't necessarily impact their bottom line? Or are you saying that it actually does?
Well, we have to be truthful with them, First off, it's all about educating. I have always come across clients who say, let's be practical. You know, they said, let's be practical. Let's just do something for the sake of doing it, you know.
Right.
But in Wonder Makers, our approach is always that, what's in it for you, you know? How can we do this in a more sustainable manner?
Right.
So this is where the process comes in. So we are working with developers, you know,
right.
whereby it's not all about building profits,
right.
but how can we build a better communal space for people, a better community. Right. So those are.
So it's marketing with a message.
Yes.
Okay, Fiza, hold on to that, and we'll be back right after this.
Yes.
Welcome back to Marketing Communications. With me today is Fiza Zin, the founder and creative director of Wonder Makers Malaysia. Fiza, let's talk a little bit about purpose, because earlier we're talking about why companies needed to get on board with the UN Sustainable Development Goals and not just market for bottom line purposes, but market with a message. When I first met you, you had given a talk at an Entrepreneurial Nation conference, and you were part of something called Invigorate International. Could you share with us a little bit more about this?
Yes, Invigorate International is a social enterprise company which was co-founded by me and Alex Tan. It was actually the brainchild of Alex through his personal journey.
What is his personal journey?
Yeah, Alex is a brain tumor survivor, and he's and it was through his experience when he was recovering that he finds that survivors need something that would make them feel more empowered, something more purposeful to do, because they still have the ability and the intellectual to share what they have. So Invigorate International actually does provide heroes who we can heroes who are
what do you mean by heroes?
Yes.
that Invigorate International works with?
Okay. Invigorate International heroes are people who have
their background. It's okay. Take your time. Yeah.
Okay. Heroes in Invigorate International are people who come from 3 categories. They are survivors of adversity.
Right.
All right. Also, people who were born or living with chronic conditions. And caregivers to these 2 heroes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And caregivers as well.
Yes.
And what is their role with Invigorate International? What do you do, and how do you work together with them?
Yes. So Invigorate International envisions to become a platform for these heroes to share their stories and also to make sure that they get paid for their sharing. Right.
And who usually invites them to give talks, or how does this work?
Right. So we have had today our heroes have been invited to become panelists, hosts, and also training and facilitators for programs by companies as well as public programs.
And how is getting involved with something noble like this, how does this factor into the greater messaging goals that your organization has for the public?
Yes. So by doing it, from the words of our own heroes, they feel that they are more empowered, and they know that they are making a positive impact to everyone who have heard their stories. So there is something good there. And they also feel good that they are earning something, you know, and they are being appreciated. So what we are trying to create is that inclusivity, diversity, and recognition of talents, regardless of your background. So this is the idea that we would like to push forward.
And you know, when organizations or SMEs are getting involved in this space, do you think, however, that it's exploitation, or do you think that it might not be something they want to still kind of drive the brand? Is that something you feel as being inherently contradictory, or is there a tension there?
This is something new that we are trying to push here, and we do not blatantly put our talents on the spot to participate in such commercials or whatnot.
Right.
But however, what we're trying to say is that there is a different approach. There are people from different kind of background, you know, that could be involved in your messaging, you know, and then you could make a difference by recognizing these talents, differently able people with different talents, you know. Yes.
Right. And tell us a bit about your team that works with you at Wonder Makers. What's the background of people that you hire or the talent that you have on your team in this industry?
Yeah, so this is the best part, is that whenever I receive a resume for someone to work at to join our studio, I would try as much not to look into their portfolios.
Okay.
I would like to hear their stories, and I would like to know what were their experiences and what was the lessons that they have gathered from past experiences, and where do they think they're going to be in years to come.
Right.
And how would they like to make an impact to the community as a whole. And this is so I have people from diverse background, not necessarily from a creative background, but I have an influencer who works for me.
All right.
Yes,
okay.
and I have a videographer who now be part of our team to work on Immigrates, you know, Immigrates project. So we have people of diverse experiences working together. So that what makes Wonder Makers more different than the others.
And what are the key traits somebody needs in order to excel and to thrive in this industry?
Oh, definitely resilience.
Okay.
And the mindset, the growth mindset. So these two are important, and this is what Immigrates initiatives is all about.
Right.
You know, in order to be successful, you must have the growth mindset.
Right.
And you also need to be resilient, you know, because this is not something easy that you know, you need a heart of steel to be involved in the industry. Yes.
Right. And you've been doing this for 15 years. Fiza, my last question is, 15 years on, you know, it's year 2020, what are the strategies that you have in store next year, this year, for continued growth for your organization?
Okay. Beginning this year, we have pivoted a bit of our services, whereby our theme would be designing for good. All right. So whatever projects that we are going to undertake, we will make sure that it goes with our values of inclusivity, diversity, and recognition of talents. So we are more particular about which client we work with, and we are also looking at perhaps what people would say less profitable projects, but in the long term would be beneficial, beneficial for the community.
And with a greater sense of purpose.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Fiza, for your time and for sharing your knowledge. I liked how you talk about this year you want to look at designing for good and inclusivity, diversity and recognition. I wish you all the best this year and beyond. And thank you very much to everybody at home for being with us. Until next week, same time, same place on Marketing Communications. Take care.